Good morning to everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. I'm very excited to have you here today. Confident we're going to be covering some excellent detail, specifically around Vendor Central, where I think if we have a success from today, it will be that you'll learn something new. And I'm very confident with the minds we've got in the room, Stephen and Gary, we're going to be able to get a key take home for everyone. In terms of just a brief introduction, I'm Jack Cooper, Commercial Director of RT7 Digital. I'll be hosting the webinar today alongside, we've also got Jordan and Sam from the Descartes team. And then my fellow speakers, we also have Gary, who is a shining star at Descartes. He's really, especially within Seller Cloud platform, knows it inside and out. Don't lean on him too much. I know that he's always getting bogged down in the day-to-day there, but Gary's going to be kicking things off with an overview of Seller Cloud and the platform, and specifically how that integrates with Vendor Central and where that's applicable. We also have Stephen on the call. Stephen is been a key member of RT7 in developing our skill set around vendor and knowledge within the space, as well as the reimbursements, which we're going to be really honing in on today, and an understanding of those, all the different charges, and really just trying to rip the hood open and understand more about where many vendors are going wrong. And I think, yeah, we're really excited to share some key current knowledge with you today. So that's enough from me for now. I'm just going to hand over to Gary to kick things off. Over to you, Gary.
Awesome. And thank you very much, Jack, for a fantastic introduction. Really appreciate that. So, who is Descartes? Descartes as a whole, we are an international software company. We have over 200 different products that we offer under the Descartes umbrella across multiple different industries and multiple different countries. As a whole, we have 29,000 plus customers worldwide that are using different applications from Descartes. And with that, we have over 2,600 experienced employees that are there to help with the day to day and make sure that we have the right solution just for you. Now, speaking of solutions, in our e-commerce division alone, we have a plethora of different solutions, and we can provide depending on what your needs are as a customer. Do you just need a shipping application to start? We offer ShipRush, Ozlink, XPS Ship, and PaceJet, whether you're looking for standard shipping, LTL, or freight shipments. Do you have an ERP and you're just looking for a WMS that you want to add on to make your warehouse operations more efficient? Streamline that process with PeopleVox. Or do you prefer an all-in-one solution? Do you need that type of channel connectivity? For our small to mid-sized businesses, we have Finale. And for what we're going to be talking about today, for our most complex and enterprise level customers, we have Seller Cloud. Now, what is Seller Cloud? Seller Cloud in and of itself is a number of different software applications all put together to create a one-stop shop solution. We offer product information management tools of PIM software. So you want to manage images, bullet points, descriptions, attributes. We have a content database. With that, when we're tracking your SKUs, we also track the inventory. So we know how much inventory is in your warehouse, where it's going, where it's been. This is going to very much so tie into the services that RT7 provides with how we're able to better track all of these different movements with the inventory and make sure that we're synchronizing it properly to the different channels as part of the channel management services. We also provide an OMS, an order management service, where we're pulling in those orders, we're acting as that sales funnel, and we're helping your teams with our WMS with the picking, the packing, and the shipping out of the warehouse. Again, providing a full solution. Now, how does this web work for our customers? We like to use this little infographic because this gives you an understanding of the type of network that we're able to set up for you with the services that we provide at Seller Cloud. Seller Cloud, being the main brains of the operation, is what's going to be talking to all of these different channel partners. This is what's going to be pulling in the orders, sending out the inventory feeds, updating back, tracking, and providing you with the different reports that you're going to want to make those day-to-day business decisions. For the warehouse, so if you have your own warehouse, you don't have your own warehouse, Seller Cloud will work for you. SKU Stack, though, just optimizes your own warehouse needs that much further, where you now have bin level management, mobile applications for scanning. And with that, we are tracking every individual user movement. We know what products are coming off the shelves that are going in those boxes. And all of that is actually being tracked in our system. So you have that data to back you up when you have companies like RT7 go to bat for you. Now, Seller Cloud, Descartes, or Descartes Seller Cloud, Amazon Vendor Central, RT7, how does this kind of all work together? Where does this synergy come into play? Well, Seller Cloud is directly integrating with Vendor Central for managing the outbound shipments. So we're pulling in those purchase orders. We're seeing that inside of the system. We're helping you build the shipment plans and everything, sending back that information, what's on back order, what you're shipping it in, what's going on, these different shipment plans. That's all something that we're tracking inside of Seller Cloud. And as you are doing business with Amazon, and we'll let RT7 Jack speak a little bit more on this. He knows his company a bit better than I do. But we have all of the data that's needed for when you are working with companies like RT7 to help claw back those dollars, those lost dollars over the years that Amazon has just kept from you, that you should be being able to use for better opportunities. And with that,
Yeah.
I'll pass it off to Jack.
Thanks, Gary. No, thank you very much. So I think that leads on quite nicely that we did a little bit of research prior to this and have some tailored data to share with those that are on the call today. From just the attendees alone today, we estimate there to be at least $8.2 million per month moving through Vendor Central. So a significant sum. And when looking at that figure, if we were to take a reserved estimate, that we tend to find anywhere between 2 to 7% of that is actually being incorrectly charged. And we're going to go into more detail in the later slides, that actually there's from within this call alone, there's an estimated 36.96 million that is could be recovered from the accounts that we've got here today. So some big sums there. It's actually quite astounding when we get into the detail of reviewing these accounts, how many different areas there's missing dollars that can be looked at over a 5-year period. Now, as I said, there is a range that we look to, and the lower starting point would be a 2% of revenue, but can be right up to 7%. So given the number of, if you were to do a quick calculation of the existing revenue you have moving through 1P, it could goes to show when you have a significant look back period, how much could be recovered from the channel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down with Stephen over the course of the next few slides the key areas that you should be looking to, and also some of the conditions and changes that we're seeing, especially on Amazon.com, but also moving across to other regions as well, because I appreciate there's a number of everything tends to start on Amazon.com in terms of the trends and the restrictions that Amazon impose, and then it trickles down to other regions as well. So we've got these are all the different types of recoverables. The main ones is shortages, overages. So that is where Amazon claims to have received less inventory than they requested. You also have chargebacks as well. We look at those. You can only actually look back over a 30-day period for those, 30-day window. So it's more about addressing any issues with your chargebacks and making sure that you reduce them on an ongoing basis as opposed to looking back over a further period. The co-ops are also the terms associated with the account. These should not be accepted as gospel in the way that they are. The amount of account we review hundreds of vendor accounts, and it's astounding the difference in terms that we see across those accounts as well. So you can actually, it's very important that you get an understanding on the different areas you can negotiate on when it comes to those annual vendor negotiations. Price claims, again, we look to, as well as early payment and returns. Early payment often is a discount applied to payments with Amazon, and they will apply it even when the payment is made late. So these are blanket brushstrokes supplied by Amazon, and unless you're on it with making sure that these can actually be disputed, otherwise, Amazon will continue to charge. And as I'm sure we would all agree, they're a bit of a law unto themselves. So it's very important that you have a keen eye on these and you make sure that you are monitoring closely all of these different recoverables. So as I mentioned before, shortages, we have a two 2 to 5 year look back window now. This was 5 years until very, very recently, and this is why it's important that you act fast. If this is an area of your account that you are, that everything we're running through today is more news to you, then it's important that you look at it as quickly as possible. We are finding that we're still getting some success over a further than a 2 year look back period. However, that is a window that is closing fast, so it could be significant impact on you and your 1P account if you are only able to look at 2 rather than the 5 years. Overages is only 3 years as it currently stands, so wasn't able to look back over that 5 year period prior. Um, and we're still expecting the grip to tighten. So it's key that Amazon is looking at this, and it's important that you are too as a priority. Just going to hand over to Stephen now to talk a little bit more around the co-op agreements and things that you need to be considering there.
Jack. So yeah, co-ops, every vendor account effectively has them. And generally you will have these percentage of revenue accrual agreements. And there are several different problems that come up within these. Firstly, it's always just worth reviewing each time you go into your annual terms. Are your terms working for you? Are they good? Can you do better? But even when you have agreed them, Amazon does not always bill them in the correct way that they should. The most common area that they get this wrong is that they bill for the wrong quantity of units. So it's always calculated off units received to then work out what the co-op will then be. They will sometimes calculate off the requested quantity rather than the accepted or the actual received quantity they then had. And they'll sometimes bill for a price, and then they've taken a price claim, so they've billed the co-op on the higher value of the item. Co-ops can also be set up incorrectly. They get set up by somebody internally in the system, and typos do happen on their end. And just general setup mistakes. 5% is actually 6%, for example. We've also picked up in some extreme cases where clients have had multiple vendor accounts within the same regions or across a region such as all of America or all of Europe, and they have a co-op in one account that is only meant to apply to that one account. Amazon applied it to the other accounts anyway. Something they're completely not meant to do, was against what the terms of the contract actually stated, and meant that every co-op that had been billed in those other accounts could and was reversed. And then the last part that can also come up is co-ops being put into place that weren't even accepted. Amazon has a few auto approval aspects within their accounts, and we've seen people end up with agreements that they never actually agreed to. And in some cases, Amazon will charge off of a rate card effectively, where if you do not have an agreement in place, they'll just bill against a standard term, which is usually high compared to a term that you would actually be able to agree. And you would be able to move to a co-op agreement and actually save money going forward. The main thing that causes these most commonly is the stock receiving issues that lead into the shortages and overages piece, with Amazon just misreceiving stock across the board. It is the most common problem within Amazon, and just leads to these effectively cascading billing errors of just one problem causing several other problems. And while their systems are meant to correct and repair these, they're just not particularly great at doing it. So another thing where Amazon is not great at following their rules, returns. So one of the most common types of co-ops that you will have, damage allowance, overstock allowance, and other types of return-based agreements. Amazon will often not obey them. I've spoken to several companies this year where they've got agreements in place that Amazon is not meant to return any stock, and yet Amazon returned stock. And they had to raise cases on this. They had to speak to their vendor manager. They were able to get that changed. They were able to get their money back for those items. But even on accounts where they have only, let's say, one type of allowance, let's say they only have a damage allowance in place, they're only able to receive overstock. A lot of the overstock that is actually received is damaged goods. And vice versa, they've got an overstock allowance, but the only stuff that they get back is then the damage. So you can have both sides of it, where Amazon will look at what they can return it as, misclassify it, and then send it anyway. The other problems that can then come up is just you don't actually receive the return. You can have Amazon says they've returned it, but it never turns up at your warehouse. I was talking to a company very recently where they had some returns that turned up that weren't even theirs. So it gives you an idea of where some of those returns end up, just at other vendors' doors. The look back on returns is always a little bit questionable. Usually you can look back over 6 months. Sometimes they'll say it's got to be within 30 days of the actual shipment. Does depend a little bit on the vendor manager. The system is meant to allow for 6 months. The biggest challenge with returns is they want things like photos and other proof of delivery pieces in there to effectively support it. It's one of the few areas where external documentation is needed outside of just the Amazon system.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, so I can kick things off and I'll just hand over to you. So I think we often get asked about why is this so hard to manage? Why is it not something that we can do ourselves? And I think a couple of the key things here is first and foremost, we often find within our potential clients or client business, they have someone that is aware of this, but it is maybe one member of staff that has another 20 other tasks that they need to complete as part of their role. And managing this on a day-to-day basis is simply unrealistic to think you can cover it all without it being a full-time role. And it also is another aspect of it is Amazon, I think, purposely makes it very difficult to understand this data. We actually have developed our own internal software that we utilize to be able to consolidate and make sense of the data within Vendor Central. So I think that's another key area that we find even those that are managing it correctly or have an awareness of it, they still have aspects of the recoverables slipping, the reimbursement slipping through the cracks. And challenge is when you dispute any of these areas, redispute success rate massively falls. So you want to make sure if you are raising cases against any of these areas that we've outlined today, that you are getting it 100% right first time, and you have a clear angle to address it with Amazon. Otherwise, if you do want a second set of eyes or support, it will make things a lot more challenging to have success. Stephen, what other areas would you say would make it challenging have you seen for managing itself?
well, as you've kind of already touched on, the system itself is complicated. And while admittedly Amazon has got a bit better in recent years and especially recent months in terms of their internal reporting and data, they are still massively behind where they should and need to be. For example, there is no direct report that shows overages. The general paper trails that happen within Amazon, we've all seen Amazon needs to pay £10 of an invoice on £1,000 invoice. They'll pay the entire 1,000 and then deduct £990 later. I did an analysis on the average time that takes, and across all the clients we were looking at, it was an average of 4 days for that payment to be taken. So you would get the money and 4 days later, Amazon would take it back. So unless you're looking through the system to expect that, that's a difficult thing to keep track of within your accounting. And the longest that I saw that it took them to take it was 183 days. So quite a range of how long Amazon will do to actually take this next trail of the paperwork. You've already kind of touched on the 2-year versus 5-year piece on shortages, and it's just a prime example of Amazon constantly changing the process and limiting their timeframes and trying to make their policy as rigid as possible in these areas. So historically, we've always been able to go back 5 years, every region on shortages. And very recently, Amazon started to say 2 years, hard cap, can't go beyond it. It turns out it's not a hard cap. We've actually, on conversations with the FinOps teams within Amazon, we've managed to get them to reassess that 2 year period on a case by case basis. But they've just made it harder to do. You've got to be able to give justification as to why they have to get to the exception. It slows the entire process down. And naturally, they ask for more data, more reasons, more inputs, just to try and make the whole process that much harder to do. And ultimately, all of these different things that they do mean that there is just a lot of different data in a lot of different reports that don't natively speak to each other. And this is why, as Jack mentioned, we've had to build our own software to be able to knit all of this together. And as I often describe it, we're not looking for where the data says there is money. We're looking for the holes in the data where we know money has fallen through the cracks.
Yeah. In terms of process, this is something that we found in the last year, we've been able to really streamline internal processes to speed up how long it would take to actually have success with any of these reimbursements. We're working very closely directly with Amazon for this dispute process. So rather than it being a lengthy 12-month period, we're finding wins within the first 6 months now. So this visual gives you an idea of what to expect if you were to pursue a reimbursement process with RT7. The first step is always to run an audit, and the audit has no obligation to attach to it. We want to ensure that we can add value before we proceed with anything. So we will conduct an audit of the account, and that is with delegated access to the account, just general permissions that would be required to view the different areas of the vendor account. And from there, we can come back with a idea of what we think is being left on the table over the last 5 year period. And that will really form the basis of the decision of how we would approach that on an individual dispute basis, or in some cases, we would engage in a settlement negotiation on behalf of our clients as well. We just need the first step is to review and understand what is going on within the account. No vendor account is the same, and we tend to find until we go and look under the bonnet, we're still unsure whether it's going to be mainly weighted on shortages or if there's other areas of the account that we need to look to. But right now, the majority tends to sit in shortages. In terms of reporting and fees, the great thing about this service is that it requires no upfront fees, and we only would invoice if we were successful on recovering any amounts, and that is a 25% commission. So I've also included a bit of information here. You can see we have a dashboard, our Reclaimly dashboard here, where you can at any time log in and understand the success of the different areas across shortages, price claims, overages, and then the total value outstanding. So at any time you have a snapshot there as we are busy working in the background. We do contract for a 12-month period. However, we would expect the majority of the success to come within the initial 6 months. Also included here, just a couple of success stories across a few of our clients. We work globally with this service. We have had some really big success on Amazon.com recently. As I mentioned, they are tightening the grip in the US, and then that's expanding over to other regions. So we're really focusing on our US presence and clients to be able to support there before things get more challenging, which we expect them to over time. So I would say that's why we feel this is a very relevant topic to be discussing now, as timing is of the essence to be able to ensure that you are reclaiming any dollars that could have been left over the last 5 years. Perfect. That rounds up everything we wanted to cover from a slide perspective, and we'll welcome any questions for the Q&A, as we've got Stephen and Gary here for any direct questions from the topics we've covered. Just opening that up here. Okay, we've got one question. I think best be suited probably for you, this one, Stephen.
Mhm.
Just around any insight into specific product categories that tend to have more shortages than others when looking at vendor accounts?
Mm. There's not a huge trend to do with category. Um, there is a bit around um, how case packs and things are set up, which means certain industries, things that have like preset cases and tend to do a lot of smaller shipments to multiple fulfillment centers, they tend to be the ones that have the most shortages just because they've got the most individual shipments they're dealing with and there's more areas to kind of spread that out. So it's not so much a category, it's more like a shipment type. Category wise, it seems to be annoyingly consistent.
Yeah. Okay. And I see there as well, Sam just put in here just around the most common reimbursement that we would see.
Then reimbursement type.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's almost definitely shortages. I mean, shortages and overages are really two sides of the same coin. It's just stock taste and not paying for it in one way or another. But that is easily the most common thing that we see. But in basically any account, you're probably going to see some shortages, some overages. If the account's been going for more than a couple of years, you will see some price claims. There will be some co-op issues. There will probably be some return issues. But the biggest offense is probably going to be the shortages.
Okay. And also just any insight into we're seeing this change in the look back window. Any insight into where you think it's going in terms of closing over time?
Mm,
Do you think two would be the limit, or it may even tighten further?
it could tighten further. It's possible. I know that they are trying to make it harder to get to the settlement stage, and they're trying to push it all more towards the system because then they can cap it in these ways. The minute they allow settlement discussions and an actual person to be in the meeting, there's room to
Mm.
push, negotiate, get exceptions, etc. Um, and even with the settlement pieces, Amazon is not helpful. Like, as an example of this, they thought they understood what their position was with their shortages, and they'd raised this with their vendor manager, and they had what they thought was a fantastic offer. 80% of what they thought was outstanding was going to be paid back. The problem is they were wrong. They'd only
Mm.
identified about 10% of what was outstanding. So in reality, they were being offered 8% of the total amount. They would have locked everything from the settlement.
Mm.
So Amazon's probably going to allow things like that, where it seems like it's a good deal, but they're quite happy to muddy the waters, shorten the time frames, and limit it.
Hmm. Okay. Perfect. Appreciate that, Stephen. Well, that's all the questions that I had from there. If anyone has any other questions, well, you've got us. Feel free to put them in the chat now. Otherwise, we'll conclude the session. What other services do we offer? So we don't just cover reimbursements. We do all things Amazon. We're actually born from more traditional agency services on Amazon. So that was looking at content optimization on listings, advertising management, account management, and that was where we started our journey. The reimbursements is an area that we're really focusing on in the last 3 years. So we do still have that service offering available. And another thing we also have is the opportunity to distribute products within the UK. So we do have our own account, our own vendor central account in the UK, and that's an offering that we do have. So but the main focus for us right now is certainly the reimbursements, but we do have an excellent advertising team that we have just shy of 70 clients on that side at the moment.
Looks like we had a question come in. Have you had any success with reimbursements with any other companies yet? I'm guessing that might be meaning like any other marketplaces,
Walmart,
or
Target, etc.
yeah.
It's we haven't looked at other marketplaces yet. It's something that we might look at later, but at the moment, very much focused on random.
Yeah, I think we actually find that because Amazon's managed so poorly, they manage it also poorly. There's a lot of opportunity there. But it is a question we are getting asked a lot at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, Images were a requirement for returns reimbursement. How do you track that?
So we're actually quite flexible in that one, and it depends slightly on exactly what we're doing with the returns. If it's a one-off action, then however it is the easiest way to work with the warehouse team that will be doing it. If it's ongoing, again, it's whatever would work best, and that can be anything from a consolidated email thread of like WeTransfer or something, or a shared folder location, effectively flexible as long as we're able to get it in a format that works for us to be able to enter it in.
Big benefit with Seller Cloud is with the returns, we do actually have the ability with our WMS to capture
Yep.
an image and save that to the return. So you will have a consolidated database that you would be able to also leverage. Again, highlighting the fantastic partnership we have with RT7 here.
I just see there was a clarification on that question. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so you meant with any existing Descartes customer. Um, we have a lot. We've many clients that we have already had success with on the reimbursement side. We have some case studies that we can share on our website across multiple different regions as well. But we have some very sizable sums that we've recently, in the millions have recovered for our clients in the last 12 months, which is why we're really leaning into this service because we've got our internal process is very much streamlined to be able to operate this. So the short answer, Mike, is yeah, we have had a lot of success, and we can also, if you would like, share some further insight into that success with you. Um, okay, we'll see if there's any more questions come in. I think for now. Okay, perfect. We'll be sure to share that with you. No problem at all. Any other questions? How to get in touch? Yeah, so I'm the best person to reach out to on this. We'll be able to share we will share our details following this webinar. We have a recording of the webinar as well, which will be shared with you. If was anything you wanted to go back over, so this session has been recorded, but I'm definitely the best person to reach out to at jack@rt7digital.com. But we will follow up with details and always happy to have a follow-up conversation, see if there's any areas we can offer support, advice, help. I know that Amazon is a very difficult platform to sell on, so we're here to support, and we live and breathe the platform every day. Cool. Great. I think looks like we're all good for questions there. Um, Lovely. Well, thank you everyone for your time. I really hope that you found that an insightful presentation. If any other questions pop to mind, feel free to reach out. As I said, we're more than happy to have a conversation or have a look at things. No obligation behind that, free of charge. And yeah, we'll hope to connect with you. This is the first of many, and we're going to keep everyone up to speed on what we see in this fast changing environment. So thanks very much. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Gary.